Today on CityCast Austin, it's been a few days, and now it's time to dig into these presidential elections a little bit more. What will the return of Donald Trump to the White House mean for Texans, and specifically for us here in Austin? What will we find out about his cabinet, his policies, and his allies in our state government? I'm here with Blaise Gainey, the Texas Capitol reporter for KUT, to break it all down. It's Thursday, November 14th. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Hello, everyone. I am here with Blaise Gainey, politics reporter for KUT that covers state politics for the Texas Newsroom. What's up, Blaise? How are you?
Good. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks for being here. So we are just the tiniest bit away from Election Day. I, for one, am still recovering, still very much in my Pisces feelings, and having a hard time.
I'm a Pisces too.
Are you serious?
I am. March 8th.
What is your birthday?
March 8th.
Stop. Don't lie to me.
I'm not playing.
That is my birthday.
What?
You are only one of two people. You're the second person I've ever met in my life with my actual birthday.
That's really crazy.
We're not talking about anything else but our birthdays. That's it.
Yeah.
Everything else, we're scrapping it. So you know what I mean. I'm in my Pisces feelings.
That's why I laugh so hard.
Crazy. That's crazy. I can't wait to tell everybody. So just off the top, now that we've had a few days for things to kind of sink in, does anything about the way that Texans voted surprise you at all?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. I think both I was surprised by certain areas of the results, but also I was surprised there wasn't more people voting. So I think the amount of the total people that voted was around the same as last presidential election, but the actual percentage, because the state has grown so much, was about 5 or 6% down from last time. I think maybe if this election happened, 2 years ago, it would have been a much larger turnout, because I think a lot of people's attention was, turned up after the Dobbs decision. Mm-hmm. And I think that sort of died down. And I think we saw that. And then a lot of people decided to stay home. And I think a lot of those people ended up being likely Democrats. And you can really see that because Trump really dominated in Texas, even in areas where it was not so 4 years ago, or even I think 2 years ago in the midterm elections. You saw in Rio Grande Valley and in South Texas, Trump really flipped, majority of that area that had been a Democratic stronghold. I think Starr County is one. I think it's one of the poorest counties in the country, and I think usually don't see something, that big of a flip like that. And I talked with political scientists last week, and basically they were saying the border issues really affect that area of the state, and so they're tougher on border policies than most other people would be that aren't near border states, and so are border counties. And then also you also have economy is really bad, and that's a poorer area, which I stated. And also the policies that Vice President have, it seems to be aligning more with the policies that a person in the middle class would want. Well, if you're in one of the poorest counties, you're probably not in the middle class. And so if her policies aren't going to help you, and then the Republican Party is, trying to brand themselves as the party for the working class, then you're likely to be pulled in by their messaging more. And I think that's exactly what we saw in this election.
It's just, it's really interesting that you said that Trump dominated. He did. In a really crazy way. A huge Trump supporter is in Texas is Ted Cruz, who was reelected for a third term to Senate. But we've seen reporting that says that Trump outperformed Cruz. It seems like the messaging worked. Do you think that that's why he even outperformed Cruz?
Oh, for sure. I think a lot of Texans personally know Cruz, much closer to home, obviously. And so I think there was a thought, and I had talked with a political scientist before the actual election night, but their thought was that Allred, Cruz's challenger, could only win if the election was close, because she believed that there was enough Texans that were upset with, you know, the so many things that he's done, whether they like them or not. They were upset on the turnout of policies that he was able to have impact Texas. And then also the time he left to go to Cancun, that came up a lot. And so it was like, there may be a couple of people that went in and voted Trump all red, but was there going to be enough to really give like Trump a win at the top and then all red a win at the Senate? If it was closer, say, like you said, you could see the difference. So say if the race was closer between Trump and Harris, then likely we could have saw, you know, Trump and all red be elected out of Texas, which would have been weird. But there was a possibility, but it was just not enough turnout to bring it close enough.
That man has a stronghold. It is ridiculous. So, you know, kind of, you've already started talking about this, you know, millions of people have moved to the state. How do you think the demographics of Trump voters in Texas changed or affected the election as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody really predicted the huge sweep for Latinos to move towards Trump as much. I think that was really the biggest change, but I believe his numbers with like white men and white women essentially stayed, you know, the same, if not close to.
Yeah.
And I think he may have gained a little more from each minority group as well. I think a lot of people just, you know, certain groups as, you know, they vote Democrat, they vote Republican, and just didn't see it coming. So I think a high 40% of Latinos in this election voted for Trump. I don't think anybody could have necessarily predicted it that way. I think like down in, you know, South Florida, you may have some areas that you could expect that, but and I say that because I'm from Florida, so I know it. But in certain areas, you kind of understand like, okay, this Latino group does vote usually for Trump, but I don't think the overall thought was that Latinos would, at the number of I think 45%, head for Trump.
Minority voters really can sway an election. You know what I mean? And so even though it necessarily didn't sway the way I wanted it to sway, it's pretty great to see like, oh no, these people are important. These votes can sway things. These votes matter. You know, regardless of how it came out, just to see that kind of sway and that kind of like, you know, I don't know. It's really
impact, yeah.
Yeah, impact is the word I'm looking for. That kind of impact is fascinating and kind of impressive, even though, like I said, I'm still in my feelings. So what can you tell us about Trump's support here in Austin? Like, he lost, of course, but he got thousands more votes than he did in 2020.
His plans, I believe, benefited people who run small businesses. And you see Austin businesses are, you know, businesses is booming in some aspects of, at least there are businesses there. You see new businesses coming up every now and then. And I think that was a big part of it. I think also the tech industry may see some sort of advantage, and Austin has become, you know, sort of a bigger center for tech. So I think a lot of industries and a lot of people in those industries likely were the ones voting and changing their votes in that way. Other than that, I would say, yes, it's probably just a turnout issue of Democrats staying at home, either because they just had it with the candidates, or they didn't necessarily like a lot of what they saw from either candidate, and people just didn't turn out in the same numbers as expected.
I'm hearing a lot of that. I think people that just chose to not. They just chose to, they voted everything else, but they just like neither candidate were someone that they wanted to get behind. So they just didn't vote, which is another thing that for whatever reason, I never, ever even thought about doing. You know what I mean? Like I never even, when people started telling me, I was like, what do you mean you didn't vote on that one? I don't know why I never thought of it as a possibility. So Trump came to town to record a podcast with Joe Rogan 2 weeks before the election day. And then Rogan endorsed...
You don't like podcasts?
Oh, man.
That's such a big sign. We're on a podcast.
Listen, I love podcasts. Joe Rogan, you know, not so much. Not so much. It's a real... we're in interesting times when the man that used to do Fear Factor, you know what I mean? Like, this is what our team has been talking about. Like, this man used to be on Fear Factor making people eat bugs. And now he has got so much sway, so much power and impact, and it rubs me the wrong way. So he came on Joe Rogan like 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before the election. And then at the last minute, Rogan endorsed him. And then another famous now Austinite, Elon Musk, who also gets a heavy side from me, who now owns X, was very outspoken for his support for Trump. And so I'm curious, how big of an impact do you think these two Austinites were in Trump's win? Do they really have, the juice, as Tupac said? Do they really have the juice?
I mean, don't they? I mean, I think it's obvious. I think you can look and see that they clearly do. I think obviously, Elon Musk, like you said, runs X, and if you were on X at all, you probably saw political donations. You probably saw, polls from Musk showing Trump with a big lead. All types of things being put out there on his platform that he owns. So, he can curate exactly how he wants people to see. I think that, you can't deny that type of influence. And then as far as Rogan's influence, he has a bunch of people who listen to him and believe, everything that he says. And so, Trump being on there that's a community you think will be very welcoming to him. And I think it shows that those two men definitely had some influence. I would say Musk has more, but Rogan definitely has some influence for sure. I think Musk is because he owns X. He donated a lot of money to Trump's campaign, and I think at that point it's like you definitely have the most influence on the actual person for sure.
It's so funny because there was like a big to-do on Twitter or X or whatever it's called that Kamala was like, yeah, I'll be on your podcast, but you got to come to me. And everybody was like, what? She should come to him just like the president. And I'm like, no, neither of them should come to him. He should go to both of them. Like, I don't even think Trump should have come to him. Like, this is a former president, boy. Get on an airplane and go fly to wherever he is. Go to Mar-a-Lago or whatever it is. Nobody should come to you. I'm getting off topic.
No, it's fine. But I would say I think that goes with the public eye perception. Once again, if I want to be a person that is for the working class, I'm gonna accommodate you and come out of the way to accommodate you.
Smart.
I'm not gonna seem sort of, so above you that I'm like, no, you need to fly to me for me to join your podcast, that your listeners are then going to be able to hear my voice. I'm benefiting, but I'm asking you to come fly to me. So it depends on how you look at it.
Blaze, don't be coming in here with your logic. So here in Austin, there are like a number of folks, both in state government and just in private life, who've been very vocal about Trump. Do you think any of these Austinites, maybe a Joe Rogan, maybe a whoever, maybe a governor, do you think that any of these Austinites will be rewarded for their support with a cabinet position?
Short answer, no. I don't think they'd even want to be on the cabinet. I think we just talked about their influence. I think in the roles that they have, I think they're more influential being on the outside, sort of, I'm not going to say pulling the strings, because I understand that could seem a little too heavy, but having the guy's ear that is running the country is big. And I think if they could do that in their current positions, I think they just continue, the way they are. As for, somebody like maybe a Texas Agricultural Commissioner, Sid Miller, or Attorney General Ken Paxton. Mm-hmm. While I do think their probably names are written down somewhere on the list, I don't see them being the top picks. And I also think, at least for Attorney General Paxton, he has like some legal issues that, he's had to deal with and impeachment things in the state. Personally, I don't think somebody would advise Trump to get somebody like that right now. But also, I don't necessarily know how much he listens to people that advise him things. So
listen, Trump be trumping. So
therefore, I would say, it could be the fact that maybe they get picked, but I wouldn't bet on it.
Not even Abbott, really?
No, I don't. I think he's comfortable also in the position he's in.
Really? Okay.
That's just my thought. I mean, I think, with the success that he just had in the state, with the state looking more Republican and him getting more conservatives, and getting some more moderate Republicans out of the House.
That's where the power is.
Yeah, and then also with if the president of the United States is on your side, the U.S. House, the U.S. Senate, Texas, they have the trifecta here as well. My guess would be he may see his role better put as implementing Trump's policies on the state level. So making sure that, when something comes down from Trump, that we make sure we're doing it here, or it could go, the other way around also. And so I think a Trump win puts them in places now where they may look and say, you know what, we actually can be more effective where we currently are.
That's terrifying. Can you tell us how you think Trump's re-election or his second term as president, what do you think it'll mean here for us in Austin? Like cost of living, immigrant population, gas prices. What do you think it'll mean for us?
Yeah, I mean, gas prices, I think that can vary, because I think there's a lot of answers on there about like how much impact the president actually has on those things. So I'm not sure. I wouldn't estimate anything on gas. I think it'll fluctuate just as it always has. And now as far as housing, obviously, whatever Trump's plan will impact Austin for sure. We'll have to wait to see what it'll look like. But my guess is he'll try to do something to bring the cost down. But it could be harmed, at least I've read that it could be harmed by his mass deportation plan as well, which obviously if you're going to be sending a lot of people out of here, you would imagine some homes would free up that could, help with the supply and demand. But is it going to be enough at those numbers? And then also, how much is it going to cost? Definitely a state like Texas that would have to participate in a lot of these deportation programs. How much is it going to cost financially to be able to put money over there while also helping cut down the housing prices? So it'll be a lot of juggling to try and do what is a pretty big agenda to try and get accomplished in just 4 years.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, but I also wanted to talk about, I think, what is impact? I think the biggest impact will be, like I said earlier, the fact that, we have a trifecta with the House, Senate, and governor here being all Republican, and then that goes on to Congress. And so I think the impact will be anything that Abbott or Trump says that they want can likely be done now. And so the impact will be there will be no Biden administration above Abbott telling him not to put razor wires on buoys. Now, maybe the courts will continue to say that, but
right.
That's just like an example of one thing. Yeah. But what I'm saying is there could be more extreme policies put in now because somebody at the top is no longer coming down and directly and telling you that you can't do it. Or they may actually be saying like, no, we can do that. We're going to help you, and we're going to send federal funds down there so that you can help implement that and start it right away.
He's off leash.
Exactly. It could be a situation where, it's just whatever they say goes. But also, I mean, there are also butting heads within the Republican Party. So, who knows exactly how effective, but my guess is it could be that we see a lot of things go the way that Texans, and at least for in the Republican side, have wanted it.
Lord Jesus. So for 6 months, every other year, Austin gets to host our state lawmakers for the legislative session at the Capitol. And so, we're definitely now, legislative session is coming up. So we're really, really keeping our eye on what's going to happen. How do you think the elections will affect who we'll see in town during the legislative session? And do you think that vouchers will still be a big issue?
I think vouchers will be the biggest issue. And I think this time around, you won't or at least Republicans won't have to water down the bill at all
Yep.
because Abbott has worked to make sure that he has votes he believes for a voucher bill to pass. That would get it passed. And if I was in his shoes, I would say, well, I was trying to get it passed before by giving these teacher raises and putting other things in the bill to make it, likelier that other people would vote on it that maybe weren't for it. But now that I don't have to do that, I don't have any need for that. And we can work, y'all can try and push that on a separate issue, but the first thing I want is get my voucher bill passed is my guess. And then also, I think when it comes to the border and immigration stuff, I think it sort of ties back into the same thing of, well, now that he has, a Congress and president that'll be in office at that time, he can start to pass bills that he believes would actually get the job done. And my guess is that's exactly what we'll see. And I mean, I think it goes as far as education. I mean, I think public schools, it'll be interesting to see what happens with public schools coming up. I think before there was an idea that once we pass vouchers, we'll also increase funding for public school education or for teachers or for things that, join in with that. It'll be interesting to see whether or not that stays around in the upcoming session.
So let's talk a little bit about the vouchers. Can you explain a little bit about what vouchers are generally, but then what could it look like? What could that look like if there's nothing that they could possibly have to put in? I put those in heavy quotation marks to appease others. What could that mean? What could that look like?
Yeah, so I mean, a voucher program, for those who don't know, it's like a scholarship program is what some call it. And often what happens is the government sets aside, I'll just say like $10,000 for each student or each family that will apply. So say they set aside a couple of vouchers. In some places, other states, they've made it where only these vouchers can only be accessed by families that are needy, that are, struggling. And so that's a thing that you could see go away is like if they had any tiered structure that they were trying to put in before where you had to be, this close to the poverty level to get these vouchers, that you could see something like that go away to now open it up more to where even wealthy families who are already sending their kids to private schools are now just getting a voucher to help them continue to send their kids to private schools. The impact of that could be that the people who thought the vouchers would be for them, those who were the most needy, they could not even end up with a voucher because it could be very expensive. Say the voucher is only $8,000 and now you have to come up with $2,000 more to meet tuition or more than that, depending on where you're sending your child. As far as other things, I think accountability is one thing that we always see with voucher bills. How much accountability will they still have to, apply to these state standards? Because usually when you're receiving federal funding, you have to meet certain standards, and this would essentially be giving state funding to people. So will they still have to meet those same standards? Will the private schools be held to a different standard, or will there just be, we're just giving the money, you send your kid where you want, we're not even going to check into it?
So no guardrails. Oh.
Possibility.
So traditionally, Texas legislature really gives Austin a lot of attention when they're passing bills. I think sometimes it feels like we are the problem child in Texas because they always have their hands in our business. Should we be bracing ourselves for this next crop to be more or less anti-Austin?
I was just reporting in Tennessee before I moved here, and Nashville was in the same exact boat where they were the little brother or the little sister, however you want to, whatever gender you want to apply to it. But
yeah,
they were the little one that always got picked on by the state when the legislators came to town. I would expect that there would be less of it because usually once you get so much power, it's no longer a reason to pick little fights. But
okay.
But also there could just be like, now that we can, why not? So they could in a way want to shape Austin in the eyes that their counties have been shaped with. and that could put some strain. But I think also, that depends a lot on how the leaders in Austin, the individual leaders, the mayor and everybody works with the legislature. So, I mean, it could have an impact this coming session. I think we'd have to really wait and see. But ultimately, I think the state impacts with like voucher and property tax that is likely to come up this session, I think that'll be enough impact on its own.
What do you think we should take away from this election? As far as how Austinites will vote in elections going forward. You know what I mean? Like we saw less voting for the presidential side of the election. Do you feel like this is something that we're going to see more of? What do you think? What's your opinion?
I think the reason a lot of people stayed home is because they weren't excited with what they were seeing from a party on either side. And so I think next time around, obviously, I would expect that there be different candidates available. I think the primaries will go a lot different for Democrats, obviously. So I think that there will be more ability to choose a candidate of your liking. And I think with that, you could see more people turn out because they may feel like, hey, we actually were able to choose somebody. It'll likely be a fresh face, a
Yeah.
face that we haven't seen on the ballot, at least not at the top of the ballot. And so my guess would be that people would be a little more excited. And also, usually what happens after, a party holds, the House and the Senate and the presidency, it's very easy to then blame that party for all the problems. That party will now,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be harder for that party to say, well, we couldn't do this, or because it's like, well, you had the House, the Senate, and presidency. You should have been able to get whatever you wanted passed. So
Right.
I think you will see a lot more. I think it'll swing a little bit in the other direction. It's just how much, and it depends a lot on what candidates we see, in 4 years or
Yeah.
really in about 2 years,
2
start to,
years.
make a name for themselves.
So we have a saying here that Austin is a blueberry in tomato soup. And it seems like in a lot of ways, Nashville is kind of like our sister city. Like both of these kind of like blue dot kind of little sister. I like that. I actually like that explanation better, like the little sister in the state or the little sibling in the state. You've lived in both of these cities. When we talk about elections, when we talk about the politics, are we seeing a lot of similarities between these two sister cities?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I think it's almost, identical. I would say it's a little different, obviously, with Texas being a border state. There's a lot more talk about immigration and border security. It still gets talked about in Tennessee, but just not nearly as much. And I don't think it actually impacts voters as much. But I think it's just like a talking point for some parties and some politicians. But yeah, I think there's a lot of similarities. When I was a reporter there and I would see something happen here, I would, it either already happened or was, a bill that we already had filed. And so I think a lot of times, parties in different states, definitely with similar makeups, being like republicly controlled, I think you see a lot of similarities. And I mean, I was in Florida too as well, and I mean, they have more blue dots than
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee does, but it's still essentially the same feel there as well.
All the same. So, as someone who is fairly new to Austin, now I'm just being nosy. How are you liking it? What are your favorite discoveries so far? How are you settling in?
Yeah, I mean, so I do get out a lot, but I don't necessarily remember like the locations and things. But I will say I've enjoyed my time. I went to, I think, Zilker
Yeah,
Park.
yeah.
I enjoyed my time out there. I go to HEB a lot. I love HEB.
HEB is our crown jewel.
Yes, exactly. And then Central Market too is really cool.
Oh yeah.
Obviously the same company. But yeah, I think just the outdoors, the weather's starting to change, so it's feeling really nice. I like the fact that it doesn't rain a lot.
Yeah.
Coming from Florida, it's like, you could expect rain at any time. And here it's like, even when it says it's raining, it's probably not actually raining. So that's great.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that we didn't ask about?
But the only thing I would like to add is that, like, we didn't talk too much about the impacts on the LGBTQ community. I think that could be one to look out for. And then also in this upcoming session, if there's anything done on the abortion issue, not to loosen the restrictions, but to find other ways to possibly, make it harder to get some of those abortion pills and other things in that atmosphere.
Listen, we could have a whole episode about the LGBTQ, but like, just everybody go buy a bunch of Plan Bs. Like, they have a 4-year shelf life. Go buy them. I don't even need them, but I buy them so that I can have them for my friends that can have children. Like, go buy it. Secondly, the queer community in Austin, to your point, is so tight and so lovely. And we try to take care of each other and we try to make sure that we support each other. But this is some scary, scary shit. For real.
Yeah, I would say don't tell too many people that you have a shelf full of Plan Bs. Because not that I think it's illegal, but it's not illegal yet, is what I would say.
It's not illegal yet. You're going to see a picture of me in the paper with 1,700 Plan Bs. Anyways, that's not true. I'm not going to do that. Should Democrats in Austin be afraid?
I would say no. I think the only thing, Democrats in local Austin should not be afraid. I think they'll be totally fine. I think, if Kirk Watson wins, he has a relationship with some legislators. I think that sort of thing could help, navigate through what some would call some tough waters. But I think also, realistically, this is 4 years. So maybe the current sitting politicians may have to worry, but things swing a lot. Not saying like Texas is going to swing all the way to blue, but just saying like the polarization of politics right now is a pendulum and it's going to eventually swing back. Things will be more calm, but we're in definitely very polarized times right now. So I don't think there's any super immediate worry this upcoming legislative session. But there could be in the future. But I think ultimately in the end, I think things will balance back out. And, Texas legislature will look a lot like it did in the past.
So I'm going to repeat what you said because it sounds great and I want to remember it. The polarization of politics is a pendulum. Is that what you said?
Yeah. I don't know. I was just talking, but
something like that. I like it. I'm putting it on a t-shirt. Thank you for chatting with me. This was awesome. I'm sure we will reach back out to you.
Yeah.
To have more conversations.
If I find out your birthday is not March 8th and that was some sort of trick.
Listen, let me tell you something.
That's a great way to get people comfortable with the interview. Like,
it is. But it took me by surprise. I was like, nobody's birthday is March 8th.
Yeah, you're right.
And you Black? Wild.
Great. I'm glad this went well.
Blaze, thank you so much for being here with me today and having this conversation. Welcome to Austin. I hope that you stick around for a while. That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to Blaze's social media and work in our show notes. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Austin newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.